All right, so I hope your New Year's off to a great start. I hope you had a great Christmas break and some meaningful time with your family, people you love, and some of whom you like and don't like, but we love them all, right? And our time with them. And as we step into a brand new year together, we're going to take a few weeks to kind of slow down and breathe from all the chaos that has come our way over the past couple weeks that the season brings, and kind of put first things first. So, January is a month where I think everybody tries to make some kind of corrective change, new habits, new schedules, new goals. If nothing else, maybe just drink a lot of water and shed some of the excess weight that the salt of our diet over the past couple of weeks brought to us. And that's all good. But around here for the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about something a little deeper than like reorganizing the closets for the new year. We're going to talk about reigniting a flame. Because when it comes to spiritual life, a spiritual flame does more than warm you. It builds energy and clarity and passion and purpose. Like, it's important to have a white hot flame in our soul. If you want your spiritual life to move again, you don't just tweak a few things, you reignite the flame. Now after that, reignite graphic, it reminded me of maybe like the Olympic torch. Relevant to this time of year. I think it's February 6th that the Olympics start, and I'm not like this huge Olympic aficionado. It just means that figure skating is going to be on my TV for 2 weeks. I'm trying to watch the Cavs. Well, you can go downstairs then. She doesn't sound like that. Everything I say sounds like this. But the fascinating part for me is the torch. Like, it starts in Greece and travels, much of it on foot, even across oceans and boats and things, but it travels to the hosting country, and that's just neat. It can be up to like 3 months of a journey that this torch makes. And the neat thing is, and it's happened over the years, where maybe the weather or maybe the wind or an accident or the conditions, the torch goes out. The Olympic torch goes out as it's being transferred, and they don't shame the runner. They don't cancel the opening ceremonies. They just go to the backup torch. Like, that's a thing. They go to the backup torch, and they reignite it, and the flame goes on. Because the value isn't in the person carrying it. The value's in the flame and what it represents. And spiritually, that's us. Like, we walk in here with the torch of our faith. And for some of you, it might be burning brightly right now. Your faith and the flame that it brings to your soul is vibrant. And for others of you, it might be like flickering a little bit. And for others of us, maybe if you're honest, it's out. It's been extinguished, or maybe for some of you it's never really been lit to begin with. And if it's extinguished or it's flickering or it's anything but vibrant, it's probably not because you're a horrible person. It's not because God has abandoned you. It's because life is hard. And that's what life does from time to time. This is where another image comes to mind. I love studying ancient Christian culture. The Desert Fathers, monks, Christianity through the centuries. these monasteries, there was a central flame usually, and it represented the presence of God. And every flame, every candle in the monastery was lit from that central fire. And so if a monk was in, they called it their cell, their rooms, their individual rooms were called their cells. The candle in their cell went out. Could be because they just they ran out of wick. Could be because they left the room and wandered around and came back and the candle was out. It could be because they didn't properly tend the wick or something like that. They didn't make a big deal of it. They didn't, try to spark on their own a new flame. They would just take the candle, go back to the main flame, and reignite it, and then go about their day. And that was the presence of God reigniting the flame symbolically. But that's my point, is that it wasn't a big deal. They just went back and they reignited the flame. And that's the picture for us this month. No guilt. We're not going to waste time on guilt. It's not performance. No one is trying to earn anything. Just coming back to the source and letting Jesus light the flame again. Here's the truth. Your soul runs on friendship with Jesus. That's the source. That connection, that relationship is your treasure. It's the thing Jesus says is worth more than anything else you could own or chase or cling to this year. Friendship with Jesus. Here's the strange little story he told. It's in Matthew 13. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought the field. The point of the story is, the treasure is worth everything. And it will cost you everything in the sense that you can't hold anything back. Nothing in reserve. It's the treasure above everything else. But the treasure is friendship with Jesus. When Jesus says the kingdom of God, he's talking about life with him. Life in the presence of God. Life in obedience to Jesus and his teachings and his examples. And Jesus says that's the treasure worth everything. Nobody sells everything for a handful of incremental change or self-help nuggets. But if you find treasure, you'll reorder everything to get it. So today, January 4th, we start right there. Reignite your soul, reignite your connection with the treasure of all treasures, reignite the flame of friendship with Jesus. And I want to share with you a very practical spiritual exercise and declaration that really helped me find my footing in the second half of 2025. It was a lifeline for me in a dark valley, and I feel like God led me toward it. So I want to kind of pass along for you something that worked and then give you some practical steps for suburban family life, if that's relevant to you. And this is still very raw in me. I lost my dad in October. Many of you know that. I appreciate the love that you sent my way and my family's way. Even though I knew it was coming, I wasn't prepared for it like I thought I was. And it wouldn't have mattered if I was, right? But I wasn't as prepared as I thought I was. It hit me really, really hard. We were a very close family, and it crushed me in a lot of ways, deeper than what I expected. I'm not sure why I was so naive about that, but there was a point in late October, a few weeks after, when I just was really struggling to just go through the motions of the day and fulfill my basic responsibilities. And it's hard, especially as a pastor, because, and again, I would never put this on anyone else. It's just that I felt like I'm a 48-year-old pastor, been in ministry 26 years. I'm around death a lot. I'm around grief a lot. I'm around loss a lot. I thought that I was just going to be further along than what I was, and it really bothered me how much it bothered me. And so I reached out to God and was just like, God, I need something just to kind of rebuild around. And in that moment where I really feel like I just desperately, God, give me something. There was this phrase that hit me. In your presence there is fullness of joy. In your presence there is fullness of joy. Fullness of joy was about the furthest thing from what I was experiencing in those days. And I know one of the ways that I feel like God speaks to me is every now and then I'll get this phrase, and it's what led to Isaiah 58 for our church. And so I went to a concordance, which is like a Google search for the Bible. And I typed in that, in your presence there is fullness of joy. And it's actually a quote from one of the translations from Psalm 16. And as I read Psalm 16, I began to see it. This is the anchor. God's giving me this. This is the anchor for me to rebuild around. Now, perfectly honest, it was a cornerstone to begin to build around. I worked through it slowly, sometimes multiple times a day, declaring its truths, rejecting the lies that I was, lost in. But I also want to be very clear that it's not like I read this psalm and then I was good. I'm not up here today having crossed over grief into an abundance of joy. It's very much waves. It's highs and lows. But this gave me an anchor to reignite my soul when it felt like it was pretty much snuffed out. And what I want to kind of do is slow walk this with you and maybe give you a framework in the coming year for you to build around and reignite your friendship with Jesus and your connection with God through these declarations if it's something that's helpful to you. So, could I have the lights, please, the house lights? And we'd love for you to grab the Bible in front of you. Most of them are on in the row in front, the rack in front of you. It's on page 542. I want to walk you through Psalm 16. And just kind of let you see it. And based on where you're at, maybe it'll be helpful. If it is, you can kind of apply this at your level. For me, it was walking through these statements and then taking some time with a journal. And I have to be careful with the journal. Like, I can get too introspective and spend too much time. Like, no, why don't you go do something, Alex, instead of just journal. But journaling helps me internalize things. So I'll just walk you through the first statement in Psalm 16. Again, on page 542. Keep me safe, my God, for in you I take refuge. And this is David, who went through some very dark seasons in his life, saying, you are my refuge. He's declaring, God, you are my refuge, and I need your safety. And then I would write about that and just declare that, God, I'm going to look to you for refuge in this valley and nothing else. And then I get to the second statement, which was extremely helpful for me. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. Apart from you, I have no good thing. Now, whenever you see the way that first mention of the Lord is all caps, that's called the Tetragrammaton. Entertain your party guests with that bit of info at your next dinner party. This is when in the Hebrew language of the Old Testament, the name of God was abbreviated. They would never write out Yahweh out of respect for the name, but they would write a form of the word out so that anybody reading or listening would know what was being said there. Then the English translators just do all caps Lord. So whenever you see that, it's the name of the God of the Bible, Yahweh. And then that second Lord with a capital L, that's David saying master. Like that's Lord with a title, Lord. So he's saying, I say to Yahweh, you are my Lord. Apart from you, I have no good thing. And this was so helpful for my soul to just clear out the noise and say, you know what? Jesus, You are my Lord, and you are the source of every good thing in my life. Even as I lose things. And this is very hard for me, being 48. I'm kind of, and this is going to sound dark, and I don't want it to, because I know there are many good things to come. I know that some of you are like, 48, dude, you're a pup. Okay, I get that. But at the same time, my life has taken the turn to where I'm starting now to give things back. In other words, I now hold books like this. Okay? I got an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old. In many ways, they are launching. I'm not Alex, young dad of young family anymore. That hits me hard. Parents, my own health, my boys, like I'm at the stage where I'm starting to give things back. And so to say, Jesus, apart from you, I have no good thing. That helps me in that even as I lose things important to me, I recognize that I still have the source of every good thing, Jesus. Then he goes on to say that now I spent a lot of time journaling that through, declaring it in my own way. Then he says, I say of the holy people who are in the land, they are the noble ones in whom is all my delight. It's a reminder that people, like we still have a community. Adam's going to talk about that a little more next week. Not Psalm 16, but the idea of reigniting our relationships in our life. Then verse 4, very important verse. Those who run after other gods will suffer more and more. I will not pour out libations of blood to such gods or take up their names on my lips. Old Testament, ancient culture, the idea of sacrifices to other gods and looking to other gods. Now this is relevant because if you're in a dark place, you can get pretty desperate and start to look to other places for hope and for recovery and for escape. This is David saying, no, it's you or it's nothing. It's you, God, or it's nothing. I'm not looking elsewhere. And if I do, I will suffer more and more because that's not where it's at. And then came verse 5, which for me was such an anchor and has produced enormous amounts of reflection for me in my life. Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure. Now, as I looked into this, that language was odd, so I wanted to understand exactly what David was saying. And this is where it really gave me some juice. Portion was in reference in ancient culture when the Israelites got out of slavery from Egypt, they had nothing. And Moses divvied out their land, and that was called their portion. So the idea of what you own in the promised land was your portion. So David is saying, God, you're my portion. You're the part of everything I own that matters. And then the cup in the ancient culture, and sometimes today, we'll use it in figures of speech, that was your situation. So like when Jesus says, take this cup from me, or he'll say, can you drink from the cup that I drink from? He's saying, can you handle the situation? Your cup was your situation. Whatever it is in life that you're going through, not what you own, but your situation. So for David to say, Lord, you are my portion and my cup, he's saying, you're everything I own that matters, and you are my situation. Everything I'm going through is wrapped up in you and my connectivity with you. Do you see that anchor there? It's like declaring, Jesus, you're it. You're the fire in my soul. You're where I live from. You're all that I have. You're all that I need. You're everything. But then you make my lot secure. This is really interesting to me. The lot was very important in ancient culture because a lot of things, even legally, were decided by the casting of lots. Can you imagine walking into a courtroom being accused of murder and they're rolling the dice? Let's see if he did it or not. Okay, that's the lot. They would make decisions based on the lot, the casting of lots. So what David's basically saying is, man, you make the dice secure, God. The chance in my life is secure because of you. What he's saying is, even the things that are outside of my control are secure in you. How important is it for our soul, especially for those of you like me that struggle with some anxiety on different levels, to say that which is out of my control is secure in you. You are my portion, you are my cup. You make my lot secure. You alone, Jesus, you alone are my portion. You're all I have. You're my cup in every situation. You make my lot secure. Even what I can't control is secure. I mean, I spent hours walking through that one verse. And again, I'm not standing up here frolicking. I have good days and I have bad as I work through all this stuff, all this change in my life. But that has been an anchor to keep the flame in my soul going. I would invite you, and for time's sake I'm going to skip it, but I would invite you to read the rest of Psalm 16, because there's some great truth statements in that, and kind of internalize it, and maybe, 2026, or maybe just for the next week or so, you walk through that and own what you need to own and declare what you need to declare. But I need to get you to where this is how Jesus said it, because it's important that we transfer all of that good stuff from Psalm 16 onto Jesus and his role. And here's how he said it in Luke 14. Large crowds were traveling with Jesus. That's your cue when you're reading the Gospels and you see large crowds. You know that whenever there's emphasis on large crowds, Jesus is probably going to do something to thin the herd. Because Jesus isn't after large crowds. He wants everybody. But what he wants is followers, people who are going to live the life. And it says, turning to the large crowds, he says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brother and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. I picture the 12, his closest disciples, like things are going pretty good. You see these huge crowds. And then Jesus says that. They're like, Jesus, come on, man. Things are going good. Why you gotta do that? But for Jesus, he wants people who put him first. Now remember, the idea of hating your family, hate in that language carried with it a spectrum of meaning, either from like hating that, like really despising that thing, to like it's a distant second. And then you use context. And I think with context we can say Jesus is saying, hey, your family is a distant second if you want to follow me. Like that makes sense. Not, hey, I want you to hate your kids. Though after Christmas break there's probably times. But that's the idea. Jesus is saying, he's first. He's the center. Do you see in all that kind of that treasure language of it's worth it? Jesus is saying, I'm worth everything. David's saying, God, you're worth everything. And that's the cost. It's saying, I want a soul that burns with a white hot flame. And so Jesus, I will put you first in everything. That's the declaration that starts the journey toward the white hot reignited soul. Now, 2 quick suburban implications. If you have a young family, this grandkids too fit in here. But this first one is kind of like, especially if you're, well, I'll just say it, I need to qualify. Jesus gives us permission to put him first and our grown family second, if there's anything in between the two. At Polaris, I see this over the years. It's really important to Jesus that your family has a place to keep him first and to grow and to thrive. And if you're, I know the implications of this. So this is dicey. I see at Polaris sometimes young families get started on a journey where everybody seems to be growing with Jesus. They're at Polaris. Their kids are loving it. And that may create some family static with grown other family members. Maybe you left a place, in a preferred place where everybody was in church together, but it wasn't helping your family. Now you found some place that it is. And you got family members that are guilting you to get back to a certain path. Or some of you have family members that have no use for the church thing, and they're making it hard. Jesus gives you the permission, even with grown parents or grown siblings, you put the boundaries up to protect your family and the environment that produces growth and keeps Jesus at the center. Take that for what it's worth, but Jesus gives you the permission to do that. Next implication is this, and it's really, really hard. We need to be careful that we protect the environment where Jesus is the center and the portion and the cup for our kids. Because as they grow, Jesus wants to be the center and the portion and the cup for them. When they're young, this is really hard in suburban America. When they're young, we want to be that for them. We want to be the provider, we want to be the protector, and in some ways we have to be. But that is so that we can one day transfer God onto them. And he wants to be that. And it's so hard. I got an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old, and it's so hard because I still, at the end of the day, want to step in and be the protector and the provider, be the center. And that's not healthy. It's a balance, and I'm still learning it very much. I'm still very much learning what it means. But as grandparent or grown parent or young parent, we need to make sure, in an age of helicopter and lawnmower parents, because here's the thing, and it's really hard as your kids grow, I'm seeing it right now. Typically, the pathway for a person to see God as their center, as their provider, is pain. That's what does it. And as a parent, it's very difficult to not just step in and be that, and to figure out what lessons need to come with us back here, maybe with a little bit of guidance, versus just stepping in and solving it. And so, however that needs to apply to parenting, remember that while everything we want is just our tight family, where we're kind of the portion in the cup, we're the one who makes the lot secure and controls as much as we can, that's God's place. And we need to evaluate how we're doing and allowing that transition to happen in the life of our kids. And I hate it. It was easier when I had a lot of control. Yeah, all right. Here's how we're going to close. The band's going to come back up, and I want to transition now from, we're going to do one last song, and we're going to move from kind of thinking about Jesus being the center to declaring it. So use this song to be a moment where you can declare, Jesus, I want you to be my portion, you are my cup, you make my lot secure. I want you center. I want you number one. I abandon it all. I follow you. You get first place. Jesus, be the center.